Welcome to our third module, Applique painting. And the reason I call it applique is because you're going to apply dried paint to a canvas or a board or whatever your base is. Now, we're going to have a lot of stuff to cover here, so first thing we're going to do is get into is the materials that you're going to need. First off, freezer paper. You've got to have freezer paper or butcher paper, something that's plastic coated on one side. There's also another thing you can use. I'm going to be looking down away from the camera from time to time, so bear with me here. There's a palette paper. A palette paper. Now this has the same thing. It's got a wax coating on one side and clear on the other. We're going to use a little piece of this for the demo, but I've already prepared a lot of the stuff that we're going to be using. Okay. Now we're also going to need paints, lots of paints. Now these have to be metallic or plasticized paints. You can't use a regular paint because it dries and flakes. This stays pliable even after it's dry. You're also going to need brushes. Now, I've got several here that we're going to use from time to time. We have a fan brush. We have a smaller fan brush. We have a regular brush. And a 1-inch brush that's been cut down a lot of different ways. You can see here how I've cut it down. I've got like, I don't know, a dozen of these all cut in different shapes, but this is the one I want for this. Okay. You're also going to need paper plates, and you'll see why here in a minute. You've got to have your water and all that done. If you can find them, what you also might want to consider using are very large push pins. They're really, really big. Okay, and you'll see why we're going to use these. Okay. Also, if you don't want to use the push pins, you can use tops for, as I mentioned earlier on in the introduction, you can use tops out of paint, out of spray paint cans. These work very well. All you want to do really is raise the whatever you're doing up off of the canvas or up off of the table or your flat surface, whatever you're using. Anyway, we won't be using those. What else do we have here? Okay, that's really about it as far as the, oh yeah, a rag and 2 buckets of water with brush cleaners in them. One of them I told you about in the introduction, I went ahead and made. Looks like that. Remember the hairbrush that's in the bottom, and I glued it to the bottom. I cut the handle off and glued it into the bottom of this. The other one looks like this. It's got a brush cleaner in the bottom, and I've put aluminum tape all the way around to keep it from leaking or cracking. It's getting old. This is pretty old. Okay. You're also going to need, remember I talked about gallery glass in the opening? This is the gallery glass. It's the clear, and we're going to need some of that as well. I've got 2 bottles of that here. And a canvas or something to put it on. And this one I've already done, but I've pre-done it. It's dark green. It's one of the little flat ones that you can buy in packs. And I'm going to use this like I did in the other ones. We're going to use that for our base. And that's about it. Now, what are they going to look like when they're done? Well, here's one. This is all gold paint that's been dried. I'll give you a closer look at it here. And with these, and you can do these in any colors. I've got another one here I'm going to show you. There we go. And the other one, this is all made from scraps. Like I said, you want to keep your scraps. This is one I made from a bunch of different scraps, different colors from other paintings that I had done for people. This one's a little bit larger. If you get in close, you can actually see it. There we go. Now, when you do these are done on, this one is done on foam, with the wood back, and the first thing you do before you do anything else after you glue the foam to the wood back is you want to drill the holes, the mounting holes. You can see the mounting holes there. Those you measure in and make sure they're exactly right, and then you drill those holes. It's on both of them. Okay. One optional piece that you might want to consider using, remember the hairdryer? We're not going to use it today for obvious reasons. It's too loud and it'll drown out my voice with the microphone. But this is a hair dryer. You can use this if you use a lot of paint and you're kind of in a hurry to get it dried. Of course, it'll take quite a while. But what I usually do with this is I use it to dry until I get kind of a film or a harder film over the wet paint so that it doesn't run or move or whatever, and then I just let it sit there and air dry. And this stuff dries pretty quick. It takes, if you do it really, really thick, it can take a day, but that's not a big problem. Okay, now, the paint itself. This is one I made already that we're going to use if I can get it pulled apart. There we go. Hold it up here. This is on butcher paper. You can see the different colors it's in it. And that's what we're going to peel off and stick it onto that little piece that I just showed you. Okay. I think that's about it. What I'm going to do now is put this thing on pause, get everything ready to go, and you'll see how it all works, okay? Okay, I've got my paints all pulled out that we're going to use. We're going to use just a little small sheet for the demonstration because I'm just going to throw it away once we get to that point. And we'll start out with a little bit of blue. We're going to make this kind of like the same one that we did before. Now the same thing holds true here as held true before. You have to know exactly how you're going to do it before you start laying down paint. You want to know what it's going to look like a little bit. Put that one on, and we'll use a little bit of aquamarine. Ooh. You can put them across next to pretty much any way you want to do it. Doesn't really matter. Put a little bit more over here like that, a little bit up here like that, a little bit right in the middle. Now I'm not going to use a lot of paint on this because we're not going to use it for anything. So I'm just going to do enough to show you how it works. And there's also a practice, very light touch that you need to work with this stuff. So if you do it too heavy, if you have too heavy of a pressure on the brush, when you're putting it out, you're going to mess it up, and it's going to just turn into one god-awful yucky color. So you have to be aware of that. And that one. Let's see, let's use a little bit of silver, sage silver. And we just keep adding paint till we get the colors we want and pretty much the order you want to look at them or see them when it's done. Just keep adding paint. Come on, here we go. This one's about empty, that's okay. And a little bit of light blue. Okay, that should do it. That's enough paint. Okay, now we're going to use the large fan brush. You have to do this very lightly, just enough to get the paint down because you want to go into streaks. Okay? Now, also, you're going to need the rag handy in one hand and the brush in the other, because every time that you make a stroke, you've got to clean the brush, dry it off, and make another stroke. If you don't, all the paint will run together and you end up with a great big mess. Okay, so let's start over here, very lightly. See how it goes? Wash the brush. Dab it off. Go again. You turn it over. Do it again. Wash the brush. You just have to keep doing this over and over and over. Now you can also do like you just saw me do there. You can also just go ahead and do it like this. But you see how the colors start running together if you don't wipe the brush off? Wash the brush, dab it off. Nice, easy, smooth. Very lightly. And do the end over here. And you can see what I'm doing. You can move the brush around. You can experiment with this. This stuff, you know, you have to experiment with everything that we're doing. That's why I call it experimental art. You have to kind of figure out how you want it to look and go from there. Now you want to keep the paint kind of heavy. If you don't, all it's going to do is mess up. Some of this paint that's down here at the bottom we won't use. I mean, it wouldn't be used. But you want to keep it nice and heavy and thick, because when it dries, it's not going to be as thick as it is on here, obviously. So you want to keep that in mind while you're doing it. Anyway, that's how you do the paint. You can do it in different ways. You can do it in swirls. You can do it in crosshatch. You can do it any way you want. You can take the brush and flip it like that and do different things with it. But just remember to clean your brush after you do it one time, because if you don't, it's going to get it all. You can see right in here how it kind of mixed it all up. That doesn't look good. This is the effect you want here and in here. That's what you want to see. Okay? So I'm going to get rid of this. We're not going to use it for anything. I don't know where I'm going to put it. I've got no place to set it here. We'll just set it way up over here like that. Keep it out of the way. Okay. Now, once you have that done, you got to get out your paper plate because you're going to need it, and you need your board. First thing you want to do, get some of this stuff. This is the clear glass, gallery glass paint. Shake it up a little bit. Apply it to the board. And you're doing this just so it kind of acts like a glue. I mean, you could use Mod Podge, but I hate that stuff. I really do. It's just not real good. Okay. Now you want to take this, brush it on. This will dry clear, so it doesn't really. It's, you know, even though it's white now, it'll dry clear, just like Mod Podge or any of these other things like this. But you want this on there so that the paint, the dried paint, will adhere to it a little bit better. And then you're also going to use it to hold down certain areas of the dried paint, as you will see here when we get to that point. Okay. Once we have that done, it doesn't necessarily have to be all nice and smooth and even, just enough to give it some tackiness. Wash the brush. I'm going to wash brushes all the time. Now the reason I have two is because in the paint, a lot of times what I'll do is when I get it done on one, I'll go over to the other and give it another little swipe to make sure I get everything out of it. Because otherwise your brushes are going to gunk up real fast and you won't have anything. You'll have to go out and buy new brushes all the time. Okay, now that we have that done, I'm going to get this paint off of here so I've got some more room. I wish I had more room, but because I'm now in a small apartment and I lost my studio space when I was doing this stuff, a lot of it, so I've got to make do with what I have, and you guys pay the penalty. Okay, there is the canvas, there's the paint. Now we're going to get to this point. We have this. Now I'm going to use the Tare method rather than cutting it or anything like that. Now you need either an X-Acto knife or one of these. Either way will work. Okay, and what you want to do is just start by peeling off the paint in just pieces, because it will peel right up. As you can see, I've peeled off some of the paint here. Now what I do is I always just kind of fold it up into little balls and stuff like that. Lay it on, just like that. Get another piece. Kind of mix it up like that. Another piece like that. Do that to it. Just stick it on there. This one here I haven't planned anything, so I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm not going to keep it. It'll go the way of everything else. You want to double it over, like, and things like that, kind of make it so you get some texture to it. Otherwise, you're just going to. You might as well just do this to the end of it, and or just what I put on the paper here, and just put it on the canvas and be done with it. But that's not really what we want to do here. You can see that see how it stretches? And peel off some more. We just keep peeling off the paint over here. Now, what you're looking at, and the reason I told you that you're going to need that stuff in a paper plate is because once you get it all applied, you're going to have to go back in here in certain places and put a little bit underneath, like underneath here, and then push it down like that to glue it down a little bit. I didn't make enough to cover the whole thing. I'm just doing this so you get the idea of what to do. Usually you'll need an awful lot of this stuff. I've used 10, 12 bottles on one painting all at one time on the butcher paper to get everything that needed to be got. And see, the nice thing about this too is you can bend it around any way you want. And I usually paint the canvas a complementary color, or a color that's a little bit in it, because you can see I got a big chunk here, and I don't really want a big chunk, so I'll just pull some of it apart like that. Stick it in there. You can just fold it over on itself, and however you want to do it. You see how it's raising up? Well, we're going to take care of that a little bit later. And it's going to start giving you the texture. And the reason, like I say, the reason I painted a different color is because sometimes I have a little hole in there, and I'll just leave the hole there. I don't. It's not that important that you cover the whole canvas. And you can do this on canvas. You can do it on board. You can do it on foam core. You can do it on however you really want to do it. There's, you know, the base isn't really that important. It's just a matter of what you feel comfortable using. And we just keep dragging it out. And there's a piece that'll have to be glued down. And then also, when you get it all glued down, you have to actually go back in and put the clear gloss over the whole thing. You have to kind of seal it before you put the clear coat on at the end. And we'll show you later on, after I do some more of the different kinds of wall art, I will show you how to do the spraying, because it's a little bit, it can be, you have to have a place where it's open. And no, I'm just babbling right now because I don't want to have to sit there and have this thing, have my, you know, there's no sound or no voice or anything. So just bear with me while I babble. We're almost done here. Now you can also see that you have a difference. Here's the front part, there's the back, there's the front part, there's the back part. You can see that there's a lot of difference between the two. So, but you can actually use both sides of it. It just depends on what you want to do. And that's a good place for that one right there. That's going to have to be glued down. There's a nice little piece that can go right there. There's a big sheet of it right there. That's the other side. Like I said, you can use either side, it doesn't matter. And put that piece there. You know, it's almost like you can just wad it up and just put it wherever you want. But you know, you have to think about how you're going to apply the dried paint before you ever lay down the wet paint, because a lot of times what you have in mind to do doesn't end up that way once you get it to this point. And this one, like I say, I had no plan of anything. This is just for demonstration purposes. Here's a piece like this, and all I'm doing is just going like this to it. Okay, and then just lay it on. Press it down. Okay, now you go back around, and that's all the paint. Go back around and you push it all down as hard as you can. You can really stick it down to it now. And then you're going to find places. And remember, I told you I don't have my gloves on today. So, but you want to wear your latex or rubber gloves when you do this next step. And I can just wash my hands off, so it's not a big deal. And you can just wash your hands too, but your hands are going to get chapped eventually doing this. Okay, that takes care of that. Push that over there. Here comes the paper plate. Let's move this over a little bit. There's the paper plate. We're going to put a little bit of it on there like that. So now we have it on the paper plate. Take the big brush like this one, dab some of the stuff on it like that. Here's a little spot here, put some there, push it down, move it around a little bit. Here's another one. Push that down. Here's another one. Push that down. Another spot. Push that down. Get a little bit more. There's a spot over here. Push that down. That's okay. And put that down. Put that down. There's some here. Put that down. Like I say, you don't have to worry about it. I mean, it looks yucky right now, but when it dries, you'll see how it turns out. Push that down. Some in there. Push that down. Some in there. Push that down. Push that down. Now, when you get all done doing that, then you let it sit and dry. It'll sometimes, it depends on the temperature actually, or you can use the hair dryer at this point. I'm not going to. Well, I might, but just to get it to dry faster. Look, there's a spot. Okay, there's another one. Here's one. There's one over here. Okay, wash the brush, wash my finger. Both of them. Get the rag, and we're going to clean the brush off. Okay, once we've got that done, we go back to the big brush. This one, the fan brush. We're going to take what's left on the paper plate, and we're going to just go over the whole thing. I don't know if we can see that part of it. Yeah, you can. Had to look at the screen and the camera to see if I was getting all of this. Okay, once you use up all that now, just go back in and squirt it on. And we got a piece of guck there. This is what happens with this stuff from time to time. Just pull it out, keep going. Okay, that should be enough. Now, just go back in and put this over everything. Make sure you get it around the edges. Just dab it on. You don't have to. It's actually better if you dab it because you get down inside the little areas. You can use a different brush if you want. You can use any brush you want, really. And I just dab it on. Now, one thing about this stuff is that you're going to get air bubbles. And you want to make sure you get rid of all the bubbles, because otherwise they will show in the end. So what I do is I just put it all on, then I go back and I get rid of all the bubbles. And you get rid of the bubbles that way. Dab it on first, then you can go back in and brush it. And it'll get rid of most of the bubbles. Like that. I really like doing these. These are a lot of fun. And they're so versatile. You can do so many things, so many different things with them. The only problem that I've found is finding enough different colors of metallic paint. And that gets to be a problem. But, you know, what the hell. Okay. Wash the brush. Like I say, this stuff dries pretty fast, so I'm going to go ahead and turn on the dryer, and I'll just shut my mouth while it's doing it because it's so loud, and you can see how fast it'll dry. Okay? Let me get the dryer out. It's over here. Hook it up to my trusty extension cord. Remember I told you about the extension cord? Yeah, come on. Plug that in. Put it on high. Now maybe you can hear me over the dryer. And you just keep doing this until it dries. I'm not going to stand here and dry the whole thing. We'll be here for the next hour. But you can see how it's already starting to dry it. We'll get that white spot there. And it will dry it clear. You see the brush strokes already. You know, you can actually, this one might be sellable. I don't know. I'm not going to try to, but there's so many different ways of doing it. You don't have to have your background all one color. You can do it in contrasting colors, black. I rarely do one in white because sometimes it just doesn't show up very well. So you can use glitter. Glitter is plasticized. Now they also have a pearl, a body of pearl, and they just added other colors to it. That will plasticize it, but you've got to use a lot of the pearl to do it. So you might want to think about not doing that unless you have a color you absolutely need. Then you can make up a small bottle of it to do this with. The pearl colors will work. Some of the satin colors will work, and some of the gloss colors will work. But you've got to test them to make sure which ones they are. I don't remember anymore. I haven't done that in years. So you can see how fast it's drying on here. It doesn't take it long. Anyway, there's no reason to keep dragging this tutorial on. You've seen pretty much how it works. So I am just going to shut this thing all down, and we will get on to the next, oh Lord, what have I done here? I got my wires all mixed up. There we go. And go on to the next one a little bit later on. Now we're going to get into some of the things where the next module, we're going to start working with the foam, and I'll show you how to make a gallery canvas out of a regular canvas. And we're going to start using the plastic wood a lot. And we'll use the acetone and some other things. And I'll show you that when we get to it. Now, like I said, any remnants you have left, there aren't very many in that other one. When you get through, there are going to be little pieces that you didn't use. You want to save those so that you can make that one that was multicolored that I showed you at the beginning of the module. Okay. Well, I guess that's about it. Hope you enjoyed this one, and you can figure out some things to do with it. Just be creative. You guys will come up with stuff that I never even dreamed of, I'm sure. And that's the whole idea behind being experimental art, is that you experiment, you try different things, you do different stuff. Some of the brushes I have, I use the big brass griddle or grill brushes. I use those for brushes. I had sponges, an old broom, a whisk broom, a vegetable scrubber, all kinds of things you can use for brushes. So it's just a matter of what you want to do. Anyway, fingers, nose, hair. Anyway, that's it. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.